नमस्कार, मैं आनंद कुमार खत्री, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर ऑफ जूलॉजी, गवर्नमेंट डूंगर कॉलेज बीकानेर। आज के हमारे लेक्चर का विषय है लिथोस्फीयर पार्ट थर्ड। इसमें सबसे पहले डेवलपमेंट ऑफ अर्थ स्ट्रक्चर एंड कंपोजिशन। द ओरिजिन ऑफ अर्थ in its present form has long been the subject to intellectual interest. But since the mid 20th century, scientists have made particularly significant advances both in concepts and in measurements. Analysis of the isotopes in meteoroids and in particular of rocks brought back from the moon by US Apollo astronauts have produced some of the major contributions. Other gains have come from geochemical research on terrestrial samples combined with the new understanding of internal processes brought on by the recognition of plate tectonics, study of the terrestrial planets as a group, and advances in numerical modeling of the physical processes that led to planetary formation. The starting point is in tracing planetary evolution is newly nucleosynthesis, the formation of the chemical elements on a cosmic scale. This includes the nuclear processes by which the lightest element, mostly hydrogen and helium, were produced at the explosive birth of the universe, Big Bang model, that is 13.8 billion years ago, and the subsequent formation of the heavier elements within stars, chemical elements, origin of the elements. By analogy with what astronomers presently observe to happen in regions of star formation, it is thought that the solar system began as a cloud of gas and dust comprising such pre-existing elements. Under its own gravitational attraction, the cloud collapsed into a rotating disk of matter called the solar nebula. The collapse could have been initiated by a shock wave emanating from a nearby supernova, a violently exploding star, or by random density fluctuation in the cloud itself. Once sufficient high pressure and densities were achieved in the compact nebula core, nuclear fusion reactions within it could begin, giving birth to a star. The outer part of the rotating disk, the matter not incorporated into the new sun, became the raw material for the planets and other orbiting bodies of the solar system. The birth of the sun, which make up more than 99.9% of the mass of the entire solar system, is taken to be the time at which the planets starts to form, approximately 4.56 billion years ago. Acceleration of the early Earth. As the gas making up the solar nebula beyond the sun cooled with time, minerals grains are thought to have condensed and aggregated to form the earliest meteoritic material. In addition, as is suggested by the finding of enormous concentrations of isotopes in a few meteoroids, and solid material from outside the solar system apparently existing prior to the formation of the sun was occasionally incorporated into these developing small bodies. The concentrations of isotopes that decay radioactively and the isotopes that are produced by radioactive decay provide scientists the information required to determine when meteoroids and the planets formed. For example, the concentrations of rubidium 87 and the strontium 87 into which it decay or those of strontium 147 and its decay produced product neodymium 143 indicates that the oldest meteoroids formed some 4.56 billion years ago. Other isotopes in studies demonstrate that Earth formed within at most a few tens of millions of years after the birth of the Sun. The most abundant elements in the Sun, hydrogen and helium, are severely lacking in the inner terrestrial planets but are still abundant constituents of the large gaseous outer planets such as Jupiter, Saturn. It is thought that only at the distance of Jupiter and beyond, in the colder region of the solar system, including the zone beyond Neptune, in which comets originated, could the more volatile substance, which also include water, carbon dioxide, ammonia, condenses and be retained in appreciable amount during the formation of the planet. Nevertheless, when the relative abundance of the less volatile elements are compared for the Sun, for a class of primitive, largely chemical, unaltered meteorites called Cl carbonaceous chondrites, considered by many researchers and most present samples of original solar system material and for the estimated composition of Earth. Their values are all in close agreement. This is the basis for the quadratic model, which holds that Earth and presumably that the other terrestrial planets was essentially built up from bodies made up of such meteoritic material. This idea is corroborated by isotopic studies of rocks derived from interior region of Earth considered to be little changed throughout the planet's history. Thus, it appears that the composition of Earth is roughly what would be expected given the observed elemental abundance in the Sun and accounting for the loss of the more volatile element. The dust and grains that condenses out of the cooling nebular gas aggregated gravitationally to form larger fragments of rock. The chondritic meteoroids, chondrites observed today are basically just such collection of grains and fragments that are compacted together into larger pieces. Through continued accelerations, the smaller pieces formed boulder and asteroid sized bodies, planet stemals, and ultimately bodies the size of the Moon and Mars. The larger the planet stemals grew, the greater their gravitational attraction and the more effective they swept up additional particles and rock fragments while circling the Sun. Growth slowed when most bodies were lunar and Mars sized because they were limited in number and hence effectively isolated from another in their orbits. As Jupiter increased to its giant size, its powerful gravity perturbed these embryos of the terrestrial planets, elongating their orbits and allowing their incremental growth of to approximately the mass of Earth to proceed over tens of millions of years. Stony meteoroids and iron meteoroids, those composed largely of iron alloy with nickel and sulfur, both fall on Earth today, and both types are thought to have been present during the formation of the planetesimals that would accelerate to become Earth. In other words, Earth seems to have accelerated by only after most, if not all, solid matter had already condensed. Thus, a wide range of minerals was included in the grains, the larger fragments, and even the planetesimals that were accumulated by the growing planet. Apparently, such as an aggregation of dense metallic fragment and less dense rocky fragment is not very stable. Calculation based on the measured strength of rocks indicates that the metallic fragments probably sank downward as Earth grew. Although the planet was relatively cold at this stage, less than 5000 Kelvin, the rock was weak. This is an important point because it leads to the conclusion that Earth's metallic core began to form during acceleration of the planet and probably before the planet had now grown to one-fifth of its present volume. Effects of planetesimal impact. During its acceleration, Earth is thought to have been shock heated by the impacts of meteoroid sized bodies and larger planetesimal. For a meteorite collision, the heating is concentrated near the surface where the impact occurs, which allows the heat to radiate back into space. A planetesimal, however, can penetrate sufficient deeply on impact to produce heating well beneath the surface. In addition, the debris formed on impact can blanket the planetary surface, which helps to retain heat inside the planet. Some scientists have suggested that in this way, Earth may have become hot enough to begin melting after growing to less than 15% of its final volume. Among the planetesimal shrinking, the forming Earth, at least one is considered to have been comparable in size to Mars. Although the details are not well understood, there is good evidence that the impact of such a large planetesimal created the Moon. Among the more perceived indications is that the relative abundance of many trace elements in rock from the Moon are close to the values obtained the Earth's mantle. Unless this is a fortuitous coincidence, it points to the Moon having been derived from the mantle. Computer simulations have shown that a glancing collision of a Mars-sized planetary body could have been sufficient to extract from Earth's interior the material that would form the Moon. Again, the evidence for such large collisions suggests that Earth was very effectively heated during acceleration. It is apparent then that many processes contributing to the early development of Earth occurred almost simultaneously within less 10 to 100 of million of years after the sun was formed. Meteoroids and Earth were formed within this time, and the Moon, which has been dated at more than 4 billion in age, apparently was formed at the same time period. Simultaneously, Earth's core was accumulating and may have been completely formed during the planet's growth period. In addition to the possible acceleration heating caused by planetesimal impact, the sinking of metal to form the core released enough gravitational energy to heat the entire planet by 1000 degree Kelvin or more. Thus, once more core formation began, Earth's interior became sufficiently hot to convect Although it is not known whether or in what form plate tectonics was active at the surface. It seemed quite possible that the underlying mantle convection began even before the planet had grown to its final dimension. Only later in Earth's development did radioactivity become an important heat source as well. Planetary differentiation. Once hot Earth interior could begin its chemical evolution, for example, outgassing of a fraction of volatile substances that had been trapped in small amounts within the accelerating planet probably formed the earliest atmosphere. Outgassing of water to Earth's surface began before 4.3 billion years ago, a time based on analysis of ancient zircon that show the effect of alteration of liquid water. In Earth's deepest interior, chemical reaction between the mantle and the core became possible. Perhaps the most important event for Earth's surface, however, was the formation of the earliest crust by partial melting of the interior. This chemical separation by partial melting and outgassing of volatiles is termed differentiation. As the interior differentiated, less dense liquid rose from the melt towards the surface and crystallized to form crust. Uncertainty uncertainty exists over when and how the continental crust began to grow because the record of the first 600 million years has not been found. The oldest known rock date to only about 4 billion years because these are metamorphic rocks, that is because they are were changed by heat and pressure from pre-existing crustal rocks at the time of their dated age. It can be inferred that crust was present earlier in Earth's history. In fact, two tiny grains of zircon from Australia have been dated at 4.28 billion and 4.4 billion years, but their relation to the formation of continental crust is uncertain. Although direct evidence is not available, indirect evidence derived from the composition of rocks indicates that continental crust formed early. Isotopic analysis suggests that the average age of the present continental crust is about 2.5 billion years. Thus, in all probability, repeated partial melting of the upper mantle formed successively more refined continent like crustal rocks starting before 4.4 billion years ago. Over the first billion years, however, much of the continental crust that was formed appears to have been reincorporated into the mantle. The isotopic data infers that an average about one third of the continental crust was recycled every billion year. As a result, only a few fragments of crust older than 3.5 billion years remains, virtually none older than 4 billion years. The process of partially melting and formation of crust, especially continental crust, leads to depletion of certain elements, example silica and aluminum from the mantle depleted and thus undepleted and thus relatively primitive region still exist, making up almost about one third to one half of the mantle according to the isotopic model. The distribution of depleted and undepleted region, however, is uncertain. Although much of the upper mantle appears to be depleted, it is not known whether depleted rocks also exist in the lower mantle. What is recognized is that Earth is still differentiating into chemically distinct layers or regions. This is the most evident in the processes of planet tectonics that involve ongoing production of crust at divergent plate boundaries, such as the mid-ocean ridges. As this material is cycled back down into the mantle of subduction zones and then upward again, it continues to undergo chemical processing from basaltic to andestic and eventually to granitic composition. The chemical and thermal evolution of the interior intimately connected through mantle convection is still vigorously in progress some 4.56 billion years after the formation of the planet. Thanks.